Hi, True Advocate. I hope you like the name. Listeners like you picked it on my social media a while back. I like it. I think it fits you. You're here because you care about these cases. So in my eyes, you are a true advocate, and I can't thank you enough. I want to thank you for sticking with me over the last 3+ years and nearly 1 million downloads. If you want to support this show, please go to patreon.com/trueconsequences or ko-fi.com/trueconsequences. Today I'm bringing you another family interview. This case is tragic and it deals with addiction and murder, so listener discretion is advised. Some names may have been omitted or changed to protect the integrity of the investigation. All of the music on today's episode was written and produced by the victim in today's story, Zachariah Juwaun Shorty. It's important to note that we reached out to Farmington Police Department, San Juan County Sheriff's Department, the Navajo Nation Police Department, the FBI, and the state police for records related to this case. And we were either ignored or denied any records on Zach's case. My name is Carter-Landin, and this is True Consequences, ISol8ed, the Zachariah Juwaun Shorty story.
I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better and drugs give me strength to face it. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better and drugs give me strength to face it. I'm losing my fucking patience, thinking when you'll ever take me. I wouldn't be surprised when I die, don't go to heaven. You could damn me to hell, just give my brother Chris my blessings and tell him that I'm sorry for everything I'm regretting. Can you do that for me? Cause every time I pray to you, it's like I got put on hold and you never return my message. You don't deserve my thanks because just look how I'm living. It's because of what you've done, I lost my hope in religion. If you'd have asked me, I wouldn't give you my forgiveness cause you took my brother Christian. I stopped all that believing and seeking out for my teachings. I'm seeing nothing but demons that come and leave, and the feeling of what I eagerly needed. Instead of being loved, grieving, my eyes felt like they were bleeding. Cause all tears have different meanings to why and whatever reason. So fuck all that you've been thinking and you could keep a box of cleans. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better and drugs give me strength to face it. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better and drugs give me strength to face it.
Just like every other advocacy-focused episode, we will start this one off by hearing from Zach's mom and aunt about who Zach was and what he meant to his family. Tell me about Zach.
Mother of 3, Zach being my youngest. 2 boys and a daughter. Zach being the youngest, spoiled, just got away with everything. I remember when Zach was born, it was May 5th weekend. When I was still carrying him, I was playing basketball, trying to get myself into labor. Was there with him every single day. He was his dad's first child. He was protective of him as a baby. That bond that I had with Zach, it was unbreakable. He was a true mama's boy. He really was. I was a preschool teacher, so I was able to be with him and my other 2 children as they grew up. I watched him, was his teacher, and still get paid for it. Yeah, so it was a highlight to actually to work and to be able to be there every single day. Nobody else was allowed to take him but his grandma. And he was a really special kid. He was a little chunky but a little husky little boy. He looked so cute wearing suspenders, overalls, and he reminded me of that little timeout boy. I don't know if you've ever seen him. There's this little doll as a timeout doll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Zach was loved by everybody. His dad's side, my side of the family. He had a very good sense of humor, always smiling, enjoyed doing many things. Just wanted to experience so many different things. Growing up with his siblings, they were always together and they were the best of friends. He enjoyed video gaming. He liked writing. He used to keep his siblings up late at night playing Monopoly. Today, his sister hates that game. Zach had a sense of humor. He was caring. He was loving. As he was growing up, he was into music. He could pick up a beat and just we'd be driving down the street and his body start moving to the beat and just coming up with all sorts of different dance moves. He'd listen to it and he'd make his own words out of the music that was playing. He continued that, and was he got into music, and I just couldn't encourage him as he did that. He had lost his older brother, Christian, 7 years ago, and so music was one of his ways of coping. He came up with his own YouTube channel. I would just buy the beats that he could download. So he had a little setup in his closet with the styrofoam.
If I either sleep tonight, I'm in a deep thought that will not stop. You don't want what I got, and no matter what the cost, ain't no such thing as light. I'm living in the dark. It's almost like breathing, but without a heart. I'm sick.
I collected so many for him one year and helped him spray paint them. We put him up, and he had a microphone and everything set up, and he'd come in and out, make sure the tone was right and clear. I'd actually even help him like with the words and stuff and make sure they made sense. And so that was fun. I had a thesaurus, a dictionary for him, so he knew what the words meant. And that was it was nice to see him really involved in his videos or his music. He'd do some videos along with it. I would also record some of him during those videos, and those were some funny moments because me being the camera person, and him expressing to me how he wanted certain things and I didn't get it. So say, Mom, no, you didn't do it right. This is how you do it. So we had some moments there, but I learned from him. Through his music, Zach expressed his loss of his brother through his music.
Goodbye. I hate to say it, so goodbye, bro. I hope you know that I tried my best with everything in life, but didn't have enough, so I gave up since you left me behind. Damn, Chris, you left me behind. Oh, fuck. That's life though, but why you? Not me. Well, it should have been, cause my life now is nothing but pain, and it won't change. I even got the help, still didn't work, only got worse. Then Sunday came and got dressed for church, read the word and wrote down the verse from what I heard. Only problem was I didn't listen. I ignored it all when I lost focus. Everybody but you didn't notice. The only person I ever felt close with, always there with arms wide open. Rest in peace, Chris.
He started as Shorty Styles, changed it to ISol8ed. That was more during the time when it hit him the hardest. He had actually performed in Gallup one year during Christmas. He had an invitation out there. It was a song. I don't remember the name of it, but it was about a girl that he had liked when he was a little younger. And I thought that was cute. He had taken one of his best friends with him so he wouldn't be so nervous. We traveled out there. We did that. He was also into wanting to be a tattoo artist. Me being mom, I've got some of his tattoos.
Really?
Yeah, so he's done a few tattoos on me.
Oh my gosh, those are really good.
Yeah, so he did an angel. This one here, I got that because of my oldest son, Christian. And then strength on my left arm. Blessed. So Christian, Zach, and I both, all three of us have blessed, but in different fonts. He did this one of a horse. Got another one back here. The heart, it says family.
Those are beautiful.
Thank you.
You always have them with you.
I do. I have them with me all the time. And those were special moments, just sitting in the chair and just watching him do what he enjoys doing. Like I said before, I encouraged him to do what he loved. He also was wanting to learn welding, to be a welder. Got a little welding machine, and he has a daughter. So her grandpa was teaching him how to weld as well. There's a little YouTube video on that as well. So he enjoyed doing that.
Now I want you to hear from Zach's aunt Elvira as she describes her nephew Zach.
Like she said, Zach was always very outgoing. He had the type of personality that just lit up a room. I have 3 girls and a son, and me and her were very close. Still are. My kids were either always at her house or I always had them over. But they playing games a lot. I remember moments in Zach's little recording studio where he's like, Auntie, help me lay down a beat. And I was just messing around one time and he forgot to press record, but I was like, hey, quit being a fool, stay in school, and just making up all these stupid rhymes. And he was just sitting there laughing. And he was like, oh man, Auntie, I didn't hit the record button. Can you say it again? And I would just laugh. And I was like, oh, heck no, that was a one-time performance. He's like, Auntie, you're funny. Just do one more line. I was like, no, I don't want to be put out there like that. He goes, no, Auntie, I'll do you right. I'll edit it. He goes, it won't even sound like you. He's on. And I had a really good relationship with her kids. I always used to pick on them. We had a relationship where we could joke sarcastic like this on each other. Just moments like that is what I miss the most. Just being able to just have the inner child come out and see his inner child, just the sound of his laughter. But I'm also very fortunate enough to have been able to see the Zach that didn't have to be the badass, that didn't have to be the tough macho guy, that would curl up on his mom's lap and put his head in her lap, or we would be in public somewhere and she'd be like, "Hey, baby," and he would just turn, just like nothing. To have been a part of his life, I just feel so blessed. Thank God every day for the memories that we have. And I really do miss the sound of his laughter more than anything. I miss the warmth of his embrace. I miss the stories. Every time we came into town, he'd be like, "Oh, Auntie, I have something to tell you. It was really stupid and you're going to laugh," but he'd go on telling us something stupid that he did. There was always a story, and we'd always give him a hard time, be teasing him. He was working with one of my daughters at the time when he passed away at Sonics. And we raise our kids to not watch people suffer, to always help if you're able to. My Baj was so caring. They have to pay for their food if they order from there. One time they went to lunch, and it was during the summer, and it was hot. It was hot. He noticed a couple of homeless people on the premises, and he went back inside for a restroom break. And my daughter, like I said, was working there at the time, and she was going to go on break too. And somebody had prepared some meals that were ready to go out for somebody else's order. Zach grabbed the bags, quickly just stashed them, and threw the drinks in his sister's hand and pushed her out the door and said, "Just go." And she was like, "Dude, what are we doing?" And he grabbed the drinks out of her hand and walked it over to those homeless people, fed them whatever was in that order. And then they went to lunch, and before he went back inside, he collected their cups again and refilled their sodas. They got in trouble for it. My daughter was like, "Man, Zach got us in trouble, and I'm going to get docked. They're going to dock us this meal from our checks." Because Zach took out somebody's order and gave it to these homeless people. But she was like, at least he's looking out for our people. It's just things like that. Just shows how special and unique he was. It's little things like that. Makes me proud. Makes me proud of who he was.
Yeah.
To have had somebody like that in our lives.
Okay, True Advocate, now it's time that we look at some of the struggles that Zach faced. I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. There's no such thing as a perfect victim. Everyone has their struggles, their challenges, and their character flaws. This does not diminish the love that people have for them or their right for justice. Zach had struggles, just like many of the other victims on this show. He still deserves justice. Listen to his family describe his challenges.
I remember another interest of Zach's was his job. He had worked as a tire tech for Desert Mountain, which was in Kirtland, just across the street from us. Perfect job for him. And he was living with his girlfriend at the time. So she'd make him breakfast in the morning and be living across and from his job site. He'd call me in the morning and he'd ask me, "Mom, can you make me breakfast?" So he'd get a double breakfast. I'd have breakfast in a microwave for him when he came over, and was always welcome to come and have lunch as well. So he'd have breakfast before going to work and then come back for lunch. He'd watch TV, play on the game console. Zach, at the time, also had 4 nieces, nephews, and he loved them. He loved them so much. He was very close to his brother's son, Tristan. Tristan was living with us too. Tristan would go hang out with his Uncle Zach. Sometimes they'd be up on the rooftop, looking up at the stars through the binoculars, and just little moments like that. It's very heart-touching. And Zach would have his little problems with his girlfriend, and he'd be out there talking to Tristan, and Tristan is just agreeing with him, and while he's smoking his cigarette, and I just thought those were the cutest things. I have videos and pictures of him teaching Tristan how to shoot a BB gun, teaching him how to chop wood, things that his dad wasn't able to teach him. So he stepped up in there as a father figure to his nephew as well. Christian had a little girl. Her name was Shariah as well, and he did the same thing. And I remember one of the cutest things, just because Zach, like I said, was Mama's boy, and I had different nicknames for him. I'd call him my handsome because he knew he was. And one day Shariah says, he and Shariah were picking on each other. Their little slangs and little nicknames. He says, "Hey, Shariah." And she says, "What, baby Juwaun?" And he says, "What did you call me? Baby Juwaun." And he says, "I'm not a baby." And she says, "Yes, you are. You're Nolly's baby Juwaun." Even with his friends would come pick him up and they would tease him and they would say, "Juwaun, you want us to go pack your diaper bag? Or go get your diaper bag ready before we pick you up." And he'd tell me, "Shut up, you better get your mom's permission." because I always wanted to know who he was with, where he was going, especially after the loss of his older brother. And it just made me more overprotective. Before Christian's passing, they both did a year in county. They both did a year. As parents, we do our best to raise our kids. When they're in our homes, they're good, they're respectful, and they listen to you. But when they step outside of home, they're off to school, they have different influences of society. And as much as I wanted to, I would love to be there holding Zach's hand, holding Christian's hand, and chasing off the bad influences, but I couldn't do that. Zach, they both got into some trouble, and Zach got into some trouble in school. He ended up doing a year. His brother did. Zach got out before his brother, and with other family members passing that were very close, they both started alcohol addiction. Christian passed away. That itself tore up my household. The loss of my oldest son, and sometimes I feel like I didn't have time to mourn because Zach started drinking a lot more, and so did his dad. My household was affected by that. And then Zach started using, and his choice of drugs were methamphetamines. He became a statistic and was in the system. Got on probation, actually, before that. I had to deal with his drug addiction, his alcohol addiction, suicide thoughts, and just depression, anger. I dealt with it all. So my focus was on him. Thank God I had a job where it's pretty flexible and was able to leave when he needed me. Anniversaries would come up of Christian's death or his birthday. And I was very observant. I was very listened, because when your child is going through these things, that's something that you can't put your guard down, because it's real. The first anniversary of Christian's death came, and I found out that Zach wanted to kill himself. I honestly didn't know what to do, and so I called into work. I stayed home and I noticed he stayed in his room. I kept going in and out of his room, checking up on him, making my presence known. He kept drinking, taking shots, intoxicated, very verbal, became verbally abusive. A lot of the blaming game starts. That was hard. The years, he started turning to drugs, and I started seeing the signs, becoming more aware of his actions behind it. And that was very hard to watch him go through. I think with him being on meth, he was a totally different person. He was not himself. He was angry. He was just very hateful and a monster. And those were some of the scariest times. I was on edge. Lots of sleepless nights, lots of praying, lots of crying behind closed doors, and just listening and trying to be aware of what was going on, because my bedroom was at one end of the hall and his was on the opposite end. And with him listening to his music and just trying to tune all of that out and just listen in on him. And lots of suicidal thoughts is what was going on. And he was expressing it in his music. And you could feel that pain in his music.
I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days don't get any better, and drugs give me strength to face it. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days don't get any better, and drugs give me strength to face it. I'm losing my fucking patience, thinking when you'll ever take me. I wouldn't be surprised when I die, don't go to heaven. You could damn me to hell, just give my brother Chris my blessings and tell him that I'm sorry for everything I'm regretting. Can you do that for me? Cause every time I pray to you, it's like I got put on hold and you never return my message. You don't deserve my thanks because just look how I'm living. It's because of what you've done, I lost my hope in religion. If you'd have asked me, I wouldn't give you my forgiveness, cause he took my brother Christian. I stopped all that believing and seeking out for more teachings. I'm seeing nothing but demons that come and leave, and the feeling of what I eagerly needed. Instead of being loved, when my eyes felt like they were bleeding, cause all tears have different meanings to why and whatever reason. So fuck all that you've been thinking, and you could keep a box of cleans. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better, and drugs give me strength to face it. I don't mean to be impatient, but God, I'm tired of waiting. My days are getting better, and drugs give me strength to face it.
It didn't help that my home was broken and his dad started becoming dependent on drugs as well and the alcohol. So I not only had one, but two. And I worked a lot. I honestly worked a lot to, at the same time, avoid home and trying to mourn over a Christian's death. I felt like a single parent during this time. His dad was in the household, but he was doing the same thing Zach was doing. I get a phone call and they're both being arrested. They both get picked up. 4 weeks later, they're both being charged for selling drugs. I felt so betrayed. It's very angry because I should have been a better example for Zach. I'm here making ends meet with bills, and he's set on a fixed income because of his disability. Where's the team in this? It was very difficult. Zach got on probation. They both got on probation after that. So I was dealing with courts for both. In June 2020, Zach followed through and he himself in the backyard of our home. I had no idea. I had gone to bed and he woke me up. Zach woke me up after midnight, just shortly after midnight, just very upset. I wake up and he says, "Did you come out? Did you take me off? Did you take me down?" I'm so confused. "What are you talking about?" He says, "I hung myself and the belt broke." He says that when he hung himself, he saw his shadow hanging, and that was the last thing he seen. And so he said when he came through, he doesn't know how long he was laying there, but when he came through, his head was gently, as if somebody picked him up and carried him and placed him on the boxing bag. And so he was very upset that I was just trying to take this all in, trying to find a way how to respond. And then his dad came in the room and he says, "Dad, did you take me down? Did you cut the belt?" And his dad was like, "No, I did not." Same thing. And he's, "What's going on here?" He says, I hung myself. And I woke up and I'm laying down against the boxing bag." And Zach asked me, "You think Christian was there?" And I told him, "It's a possibility. It's a possibility, Zach. Wasn't your time to go." I said, "How would you feel if I were to wake up in the morning and find you hanging there? You think I deserve that?" Very upset. I sat there and I prayed with him. I cried, begged God to protect them, to deliver him from the drugs and the alcohol. There's many sleepless nights before that, many sleepless nights. There's a time that another anniversary or birthday of Christians that I was supposed to come home where I'm supposed to find him hanging from the air conditioner in the living room. And like I said, I paid attention, I listened, and I would take days off and just stay home all day. And he would ask me, "Mom, how do you know these things? How do you know?" I would just tell him, "It's that bond I have for you. It's that bond I have with you. And it's that unconditional love that I have for you. It's the connection when he's out and with his friends." I would make sure that he would call me to make sure that he was okay. If I didn't hear from him, I'd be calling him. If I had a gut feeling, I'd call him until he would answer. And the same thing, he would say, "I was about to do something. Did you know?" The mother's intuition to know these things. Mom, we need to follow those things and to listen. My family used to tell me through his addictions and just chase him out. If that's what he wants to do, let him be. Never turn my back on him. Could never turn my back on him. There's times that he would call me 2 o'clock in the morning if he got left behind somewhere. "Hey, Mom, can you come pick me up?" Care how far, where, I'd go pick him up. Because I wanted him to be safe. I welcomed so many of his friends into my home when they didn't have a place to sleep. I fed them. They didn't have food. Their parents would kick them out, and Zach would call me and tell me, "Hey, Mom, so-and-so don't have a place to sleep tonight." I provided a place. For his friends. I looked out for them in hopes that they would have done the same thing for my child. So after he hung himself, he was on probation during that time. The following day, I called one of the probation officers in Aztec and told him the situation, what had happened. So they had made contact with Zach and talked him into checking himself into San Juan Regional. It took a couple of attempts. I drove him there. He finally went in. At one point, he walked out. Security walked out after him. And I just stayed in the car watching him and keeping in contact with his probation officer. And they finally got him to go back inside. They put him in a room. They had him checked in and everything. With him being an adult, I couldn't be a part of any of that. I was just on the outside looking in, it seemed. And just praying that he got the help he needed. I sat out there for a couple of hours before even leaving. They put him in a room for suicide watch, and that same night, he was flown out to Albuquerque, and he was checked in. He wasn't able to call me for a day or two. When he finally did, I was so happy to hear his voice. Told me he missed me, asked about his daughter, and of course, I'm always asking him, are you okay? You being treated right? Are you eating okay? Because food was a big thing to him too. I came out and got him the list that he needed as far as clothing and hygiene stuff. Brought him out. I wasn't able to see him. He used to break my heart because he would have phone time for about an hour. So he was able to use his cell phone. And he'd say that he'd be watching from his top. His room was up on the top floor. So he'd be looking, watching the cars go by. And he'd see a blue car, reminded him of his mom. It have broke his heart because he thought about how I was feeling, how he broke my heart, and what I'd be making for dinner. He only stayed in for a week, which I don't even think was even enough for him. When a person has addictions and thoughts, they need to be evaluated. And I think that's where the system needs to quit telling the families he's an adult. He or she is an adult and has to make that decision on their own. Because Zach told them, I'm okay now. And so they let him go. For 23 years, I watched him drink. I watched him as he became dependent on his drugs. I knew his friends. I knew him very well. I knew he needed help. I tried to cry out for help, and nobody would listen. I think that probation officers, as old as they are, need to talk to the spouse of a person or the mother of the person. More families need to be involved to prevent things like this. I kept in contact with this probation officer throughout this whole thing when he was here in Albuquerque for a week. And she told me, when Zach gets released, bring him to the office. She said, have him call me. I'll have him brought to the office and we'll put an ankle monitor on him. And I told her, he doesn't need one for GPS. He needs an alcohol monitor. And she says, okay, we'll get that on. I come out when I get the phone call, I pick him up, and he calls the probation officer. And she tells him, well, come back, come check in with me. And he says, okay. So we go to Aztec, and he checks in. He comes out, and there's no ankle monitor on him. And I was very disappointed. And I'm like, what the heck?
Did they ever tell you why they didn't put the ankle monitor on him?
They did not say.
It's weird.
I know. After Zach's passing, I got a letter in the mail, his insurance, and I tried to ask for him to be sent off to get some treatment, but Zach said he was fine. And so that letter had stated something about, since you said you're okay or don't need services, we will further into resources, is what the letter had stated.
As Zach is struggling with his addiction, he starts to hang out with some people that Vanjie does not really approve of, and one person in particular that Vanjie is not fond of. Now I want you to listen as Vanjie talks about what happened to Zach after he was released from the hospital.
Prior to the day he went missing, so July 20, he had gone to the Journey Inn, and I was at work. His friends picked him up and they went there together to make music, and they were there all day. I get a phone call late that night or very early that morning, about 4 in the morning, which is the 21st. I get a phone call from Zach asking to be picked up. So at the time, my husband and I picked him up, and he was with a female friend. They both wanted to come back to the house, and I told Zach, no, she can't come. We had a little argument, and I told him, you guys, I can't have you both at the house together. So we stopped on Troy King Road where she was going to get off. And instead, Zach got off with her. He got off with her, and we went home about 5 in the morning then. We went home, got a couple more hours of sleep, got up, and I was getting ready for work, and Zach calls me at 7, and he says, Mom, can you pick me up so I can come home? I said, yeah. He says, you're going to be alone, right? He says, no, my friend's coming with me. I said, no, she can't be here. Your dad's in dialysis and I'm not going to have you both here home alone. And he says, okay, let me call you right back. A few minutes later, he calls me and he says, drop us off at the Journey Inn. I said, okay, I'm almost ready for work. I'll pick you up in a few. So I picked them both up. We drive to the Journey Inn in Farmington. My work is just a few minutes from there. On the way over, I'm reminding Zach of court that day through Zoom. And he says, okay, I won't miss it. Don't worry. And I was stressing on him, don't miss court. So I tell his friend, can you please make sure he gets on there? Look out for him. You guys be careful. I tell him I love him. And then I go on my way to work. And throughout the day, throughout the morning, I'm reminding Zach, don't forget about your court. Here's your Zoom link. And about 3 p.m, I get a call from a different number. And it's Zach. And his battery had died, so he called me from his friend's phone. And he says, Mom, do you have a charger? My battery is dead. I said, yes. I'll be right there to bring you one. And again, I drop everything, go to the room, and he's standing outside waiting for me. So I go to the room, he's standing outside, and I give him the charger, and I ask if he's okay. I notice he's been drinking, and he says, yeah, I'm fine, Mom. He has no shoes, his pants are rolled up, and I tell him, go back inside. And I waited for him, making sure he went inside because I didn't know who was inside. And friends can be rude and lock the door or whatever. But I made sure he went in before driving off. And before leaving, I also told him, I get off at 6. If you need anything, let me know. If you want me to pick you up and take you home, I can do that. So I went back to work. 6 o'clock came, and I hadn't heard from him. So I tried calling him a couple of times. He didn't respond. I leave work, and the Journey Inn is on my way home. So I drive by, I don't see him, and I go home. I don't even make it inside. I just start cleaning up on the back porch. Just cleaning, sweeping off the back, and organizing things. And then Zach calls about 6:45. And he says, hey, Mom, where are you at? Are you off work? I said, yes, I am. I'm home. And he asked what I'm doing, told him I'm cleaning. And he says, we're hungry. Can you get us some pizza? I said, sure. So I drop what I'm doing, get in my car, drive to Little Caesars on 20th Street. I pick up some pizza for him. And then he calls me when I'm in line there. And he says, where are you at? I tell him Little Caesars. And he says, can you pick up my friend? His female friend obviously is not there with him. And he was like, can you go pick her up? I said, what? Where is she? I thought she was there with you. He said, no, she had to leave. So I think it was the Economy Inn across the KFC. I had to go pick her up there. She was standing outside. I picked her up, and I'm not fond of this girl. I truly am not fond of her at all. So she gets in the car. We go to the dollar store, and I get some sodas, and I send her in. She comes out with the drinks. We go back to the Journey Inn. And Zach is outside. He's on the phone, and I could see that he's upset. His female friend gets out of the car. She's got the pizza in her lap, and she gets out. I get out, and we hear Zach's conversation with his daughter's mom, whom he was still in a relationship with and was very much in love with. But because of his addictions, she had to draw the line somewhere. And so his female friend hears Zach on the phone and realizes it's his girlfriend. The female that was there gives him this glare. What the fuck are you doing? I'm very observant. So Zach tells her, take the pizza, go inside the room. So she takes the pizza, goes inside the hotel room. And I'm standing there with Zach, and he says, Mom. He hands me the phone. He says, Mom, can you please talk to her? But before giving it to me, he's telling her, I love you. He's telling his girlfriend, I love you. Marry me or bury me, he says. And I'm looking at him and he gives me the phone. He says, Mom, please talk to her. I love her. I just want to be with her. Can you talk to her, Mom, please? He's pleading for me to help him repair his relationship with his girlfriend. So I take the phone and I tell him I'm here with him. He's not in his right state of mind. I'll call you when I'm done here. So we hang up, and I'm standing there talking to Zach, and I'm asking him if he wants to come home. I told him I brought your pizza. I got you something to drink. I'm trying to change the setting there. And he says, no, I'm not ready to come home. I'll call you when I'm done. I want to make some music. He says, I'm working on a track right now. I said, okay, not knowing that would be the last time hug my baby or even tell him that I love him. I hugged him, said, I love you, Juwaun. Call me when you're ready. I got in my car and I left and I went home. I waited for a phone call. I did call him once or twice and he didn't answer. I figured he was making his music in the middle of his session. I went to bed. I get a phone call through Messenger from his female friend who was in the room, the one I dropped off. I get a phone call from her and she says, Zach got mad and he stepped out of the room to smoke a cigarette and he hasn't come back in. I said, what? Where is he? Can you go look for him? And I said, you can call me right back. So she calls me back a few minutes later. She says, I can't find him. And I said, and then I go and wake up his dad and I said, well, Zach didn't get back into the room. Let's go. By then I'm calling Zach's phone. I call Zach's phone. She answers it. The female friend answers it. And I'm like, Zach left his phone. That is not like Zach. Zach will find a way to call me. He'll call me like he did that day. He called me from his friend's phone. Zach will find a way to call me. He'll find a way. It doesn't matter. He knows that he can depend on me. So we take both of our vehicles. We go in different vehicles. Right away with him not having his phone, I'm already freaking out because that's just not like him. I go and I pick up the girl and I'm like, I'm making sure she's next to me because with Zach's history, you don't trust nobody. That's who I am. I don't trust nobody. So I have this girl next to me in my front seat of my car. We're driving around Apache Street. We're driving around the Journey Inn, calling Zach's name out. His dad is driving back and forth. I sent him a different direction and we get out. We're walking along the ditch down by the park that goes down to Main Street and we're just yelling at his name. I'm driving back to Curly to the house to see if he's made it home, back into Farmington and nothing. We get home about 5 a.m. I'm tired, driving around all night, and his dad continues to look for him throughout the day, and I'm home hoping that he's going to come walking through the door, and he doesn't, and that's Wednesday, the 22nd. The whole time, I'm keeping this girl next to me. She's the last one who's seen him. I don't let her out of my sight. Zach's dad is just out all day, and I'm home. We switch out that night. He comes back. The girl and I, we go driving around throughout the night again. We're calling up his friends. We're calling up everybody we know. Nothing. Thursday morning, we get back. Zach's dad had to go to dialysis. And by then I'm telling this girl, go, I'm done with you. And I called God, sitting there at the table. My stomach is in knots and I'm making the decision to call. So I called non-emergency. I called the dispatch and they connect me to the Farmington Police Department. I'm filing a missing persons report for my baby. I'm sitting there with paperwork, answering questions, detailed questions of his height, his weight, the color of his eyes, the color of his hair, the clothes that I last seen him in, his glasses, tattoos, the dentist that he's seen. I just remember sitting there falling apart because I'm like, why are you asking all these questions? And I kept falling apart. And then they tell me to come up about 5 and they'll have a missing persons flyer out. They also told me that they would put him out as an endangered missing person because he was suicidal. And so I go and I pick up the copies and the first place I go is the Journey Inn, just right down the street from the Farmington police station. And I go knocking on doors, handing everybody a flyer. I went to the office, asked if they knew anything, if they saw anything, and the guy says no. And I'm thinking, how can nobody see anything or hear anything? Because the Journey Inn, the whole back row, it's for nothing. It's for nobody but drug dealers, users. The people in the front seem to be like oil field workers that are staying there a couple of days because I see trucks of that sort. Further behind where Zach's room was, there's an apartment building, which is an L shape right behind. It's a 2-story apartment building. And it's like, how can you not see anything? How can you not hear anything? So I'm going from door to door, giving everybody a flyer. And there's 2 doors next to Zach's and off to your left. And there's a guy standing there suspiciously, just watching me. He says, I might have seen him, introduces himself. And he says, we'll call him Justin. So he says, my name is Justin. And he says, I might have seen him. He was starting shit around here. Great. In my mind, I'm thinking Zach got himself into some trouble. So I'm asking questions. About the same time, there's a domestic violence starting to occur. The guy and the girlfriend were arguing and I seen push her. So I told him, hey, cut that shit out. I'm going to call the cops. Justin over here says, don't call the cops. You won't do anything. And I tell Justin, handle it. You handle that and make sure she doesn't get touched. And so here comes 2 other natives and they're listening to Justin. They're making sure that the girl's not being abused. And they departed. And after that, I did call for domestic dispute after leaving. But the guy, Justin, looked very suspicious to me. I go home, make contact with the rest of my family. And Friday comes, and we're still searching. We're still driving around. But Friday comes and we have put together our own search party. We don't know what to do. We don't know who to turn to. So we're putting together our own search party. There's no resources out there. Farmington PD doesn't offer help. You can reach out to these people. They can help you or nobody, nobody in the community. I believe all they did was put his missing persons on their Farmington site on Facebook, and that's about it. But we started searching. We searched all day Friday. Yes, we assigned people to different areas in Farmington. It got dark, so we had to call it. So we're still keeping in contact with his female friend. And Zach's friends, a couple of teachers from the community came out. And we had some community support, and we had to call it a night. Saturday, we were at it again. We hit up parts of the Navajo reservation just because we're border town. My husband at the time got some friends together, and they searched the Choke Cherry area because they had access to bikes, and we were going along the river and places like that. We didn't know where to look. I didn't even know where to look too. I felt so lost, and I couldn't call him because I had his phone, and we were getting reports of him being in Bloomfield. We sent somebody to Bloomfield. We're getting reports of him walking down the Sky Highway. We're sending somebody up there to check. There's no traces of him. His female friend, so she messages me later on that afternoon through Messenger, and she says, help, I'm being held hostage. We all regroup together. They call it the X. There's a gas station going up to the Bistite. They call it the X. So we're there at a halt. And I include everybody. We're reading the messages and I'm responding. And she says, I'm being held hostage. I'm in Farmington. And she tells me who she's with. And she says, they won't let me go. They say, if I don't keep my mouth shut, if I don't listen, they're going to kill her. And so I'm like, she says, can you come get me? Please help me. She sends me the location. She pins the location and we called Farmington PD. And we meet the Farmington PD just down the street from her. And we show him the messages. We tell him what we're doing, about Zach and everything like that. And that she was one of the last females that was with him that night, along with 3 other people. So the officer is going to go to the house and he sees her walking down the street with another female. And he says, is that her? I said, yeah, that's her. Well, she's not even being held hostage. She's lying the whole time. And so the officer pulls them over, questions them. And she says, no, I'm not being held hostage. And so there's lots of confusion there. And the officer says, why did you text her? She didn't know what to say. She was obviously strung out on drugs too. The officer pulled up a warrant on the girl. Her boyfriend was mad because of the whole situation. So he was taking pictures of our license plates and our vehicles and everything like that. And the officer is allowing him to do that. I'm pointing it out to him. And his name had even come up a couple of times during this whole investigation. Nothing's come out of it.
You think she was just trying to divert your attention from looking?
I think so.
The crazy thing about the whole situation is when she started texting my sister saying that she was in danger was when we were actually having witnesses say that they saw Zach in the area that we were looking at. And it turned out just miles down the road which if we would have kept looking, we would have came across the murder site, because the time that she was distracting my sister is when his body had been found, and the Navajo PD on the scene doing their investigation. And we were just
there.
8 miles away. 8 miles away from where his body was. So I think somebody had to have been watching us and knew that we were getting close and used her as a diversion to pull us from going any further. And it really frustrates me just how crappy the investigation was handled from the jump. Later on, we found out that Zach laid in the morgue. So they found him Saturday. The whole entire weekend he was laying there in the morgue, when they told us that he would be put as an endangered missing person. If they would have did their shit properly, when he came into that hospital, they would have known who he was. But obviously, PD dropped the ball. Nobody in that hospital knew who he was.
So she was released and they let her go. I gave her bag because we had her bag and it was full of needles. There was nothing that the officers could do about it. It was her possession. Yeah. I don't quite understand that. So that was Saturday. Sunday, we were exhausted by Sunday. Zach's dad continued with the search and his friends. We were exhausted. We were so exhausted. I told my family, Sunday, let's rest. I just want to be in prayer for him. And we did that Sunday. My family just gathered. We just were together. Monday came. We still hadn't heard anything from anybody. Sunday, there was a rumor of a body being found. And I was, no, it's not Zach. I was in so much denial, but there was no other further information. Monday came. I got the same rumor. And so it was late in the afternoon. I was told there's a body that was found fitting Zach's description. OMI has him. Call Shauna with OMI. And I was given a phone number at 3 in the afternoon. So I call OMI and I gave him Zach's description. Gave him clothing, tattoos. And she says, we have a body that fits the description. I'm going to go back there now. I'll look. But there's one that came in. I can't confirm. So I said, please call me back, please. And my stomach is turning. I'm with his dad and we don't know what to think. We're waiting and waiting. Nobody's calling us back and it's close to 5. So I tell him, let's go up to the Farmington police station. Let's see if they know anything. We get there. The office had just closed. So we go around the back of the Farmington police station and I'm knocking on doors. Finally, somebody comes out. I tell her who I am, who Zach is, and what's going on. And I said, please, somebody, I need answers. They obviously didn't know what was going on. She says, wait up in the front while I make some phone calls. I go up to the front, the parking lot again. And so I call OMI again. And she says, yes, I am standing here with him right now. Tattoos you're describing matches. The clothes you're describing matches. But I can't confirm because we still have to run fingerprints. And I said, can I please come drive out right now to identify him? She says, no, you can't. Begging. And by then, his dad is over here puking, and we get the attention of a Farmington PD officer who comes by. He asks us if everything is okay. I hung up with OMI, and then a Navajo Nation fire department drives by, and he sees us. And he stops by and he's asking if everything is okay. And I'm like, no, everything's not okay. I said, I need some answer. Nobody will tell me anything. He gets on the phone and I'm reading his body language. Takes the phone call as far away as he can. And I knew that was my Zach. They weren't saying anything. They still wouldn't confirm. He tells me, come back in the morning so you can talk to the investigator. So we go home. And in silence and go to my room. And I'm just wondering what the hell is going on. What's my baby? Where's my baby? I finally fall asleep from crying. His dad had left and I don't know where he went. Then he came home. He woke me up about midnight. I'm in the room and he sits, chair, pulls it up right in front of the bed and he tells me, sit up. And I'm sitting up, I'm half asleep and he's in my face. Zach's dad is in my face and blaming me. Telling me it's my fault, and I take it. I sit there and I take it. And he's pointing at me, just fingers touching my chest. just blaming me, and I take it, and I hear a buzz on the bed, and it's my phone, and I look at my phone, and it's a ransom text, and I'm like, he's saying whatever he's saying to me, and I'm over here reading the text, and I'm telling him, stop. I was like, read this, and there's this ransom text that says, I have your son, Zachariah, who is very sick, and who needs his mom, and I need $7,000 right now for his safety. And so, just so much confusion from earlier that evening, having a body found and having a ransom text come in, and just text after text coming in. And he says, do you hear me? Do you respond to me? And then he calls me and he's talking to me and he says, do not tell the police. Do not go to anybody. Your son will be dead. Then he hangs up and I'm like, what are we going to do? And I don't want to call the officer because you can easily download a scanner and listen to all of that. So we go driving around Carter-Landin looking for the sheriff. We finally find one. We meet him at the Mormon church. And so we tell them the whole story about Zach going missing and his body. And then we show him the ransom text. And then so he sends us to the Farmington PD because that's who we filed a missing persons report with. When an officer meets us there, takes pictures of my phone, and once again tells me, come back in the morning and talk to your investigator. So we go home. Next morning, we get up. I meet with my whole family. They all come. We meet at the Farmington PD. Go upstairs. They interview my brother-in-law, who's the one who had the information about OMI having a body. So they interview him first. He comes out, and then they call me in, and I'm being interviewed for my son. And I give them all the details from Monday night, or early morning when I picked them up with his female friend. And Tuesday when I dropped him off, I go through the whole story, telling the whole story, even of the footwork of us looking around for the search party. Everything I had in my phone, I'm showing it to them. They take my phone, actually. They asked to take my phone, and they took whatever off my phone. They had my phone all day long. So they listened to what I had to say. I remember FBI there. I remember the gang task force there. Navajo Nation there. San Juan, Farmington PD was there. And my phone is also ringing the whole time. And I'm like, he's calling. And they're like, just leave it. They don't bother listening to what the guy has to say. They said they took my phone and they said, we'll contact you later today.
They still haven't told you anything.
They still hadn't told me anything. We leave with no answers. So we go home and I'm waiting for my phone to be returned. I'm waiting for answers. And we're just sitting there. Zach's dad and I are sitting there at the table. We get a knock on the door. It's FBI, an advocate. I don't remember who the third person was. But they come in, they asked to come in. I said, come on in. They asked us to sit down. We sat down. And they confirmed that it was Zach that was found. And I just remember just sitting there, not knowing what to say or do. He just said, if you need anything, call us. They didn't say anything about what happened. I did ask what happened. They said they couldn't give out any information because it's under investigation. So at the time, I didn't even know it was a homicide. I didn't have any answers even as to where they found him. They wouldn't give that information at the time. One thing that they did say was not to let anybody know. So I'm not sure what exactly that was about. And so it was just his dad. And I'm like, how can we not let people know? What do we do? So the following day, we hold a family meeting. His family came. We told them that Zach was found, and we had no other details, that he was gone. It was one of the hardest things to do when you have to sit there and you tell your in-laws. Went down to my mom's, same thing. I'm just sitting there and feeling like you're judged and not having answers. We had planned for the next following days, we planned for Zach's funeral. It wasn't until I got his death certificate that I had found out that he had died of gunshot wounds.
Thanks for listening. This is part 1 of the ISol8ed series. Next time on True Consequences.
I believe it's somebody who did it out of hate, who was angry. It's not something you just randomly go out and do. Could be retaliation, which goes back to the drug charges. What the fuck, Mom? It's like in the movies. He said that he was taken into a room and the guys questioning them had the black ski mask. You can't even see their faces.
All of the music in this episode was created by the victim in this case. Click the link in the show notes below to listen to more of his music. Also, follow the Facebook page so you can learn how to help Vanjie and her family as they fight for answers. The link to that Facebook page is in the show notes below. As always, stay safe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rest in peace, Chris. Oh, I miss you so much. I'll see you soon. Tell me, are you there? And what's it like? Please don't be scared to leave me behind. I know it's not fair, but I'll be alright. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. I miss you. I need you. I love you. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. I hate to say it, so goodbye, bro. I hope you know that I tried my best with everything in life, but didn't have enough, so I gave up since you left me behind. Damn, Chris, you left me behind. Oh, fuck. That's life though, but why you? Not me. Well, it should have been, cause my life now is nothing but pain, and it won't change. I even got the help, still didn't work, only got worse. Then Sunday came and got dressed for church, read the word and wrote down the verse from what I heard. Only problem was I didn't listen. I ignored it all when I lost focus. Everybody but you didn't notice. The only person I ever felt close with, always there with arms wide open. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. I miss you. I need you. I love you. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. Tell me, are you there? And what's it like? Please don't be scared to leave me behind. I know it's not fair, but I'll be alright. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. I miss you. I need you. I love you. Rest in peace, Chris. Goodbye. 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 Rest in peace, Chris.